Hello, family, and welcome to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name is Betty Guadagno, and today I'm joined by Vinnie. Vinnie is a near-death experiencer. He is a healer, a coach, a light worker, and today we're going to talk about all things spiritual. Vinnie's going to give us a brief description of his near-death experience, and then we're going to talk about some of the integration tools and what he's got going on in his life now. So thank you so much for your willingness to serve our community, Vinnie. Oh, also, Vinnie's going to be at our 2023 IANDS in-person conference in Washington, D.C. So that's going to be really exciting as well. I'm going to toss it over to you to share a little bit of your experience, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Betty. I really appreciate this work, this venue. I am so grateful, number one, for IANDS. I've never in my life had this feeling of family like I did the first time I went to conference. I just felt like I was so included, so embraced, and whereas so many other places in my life or so many other aspects of my life, I felt the opposite. I felt excluded. I felt ostracized. But man, in IANDS, I really am grateful for IANDS. So thank you, IANDS. Thank you, Betty, for having this as an opportunity to speak and share the things that I learned from my death. So to give you a quick synopsis of me, back in 2003, I was found dead in a public bathroom. I had aspirated. I had gotten a poisonous supplement and I had vomited and breathed in that vomit. So I had aspirated. They found me and pronounced me dead. They put me in a body bag. They took me on their way to a medical examiner so they could turn in the body for an autopsy, most likely. And on their way there, a medic, a brand new medic, a rookie medic, he felt what he termed as intuition or God tell him that I wasn't dead. And I was watching and perceiving this whole thing as he received this witness, as he received this message, and he followed that prompting, he followed that intuition, and he was able to resuscitate the body. Now, out of a body bag, he was able to resuscitate the body. I still wasn't back, though. I was still brain dead for 3 days. And while I was brain dead and in a coma, essentially, I was often in what I call our real existence. Not this existence, because this existence is not our real existence. But I was off in our real existence where we all existed before here and we will exist eternally after here. But here was just the pit stop, and I was able to learn quite a bit. So in my journey, going to this, if we want to call it heaven, we can call it heaven. On my journey there, I was taught some major principles for myself, and yeah, I can go over those today with you. I really am different now because of those 10 principles. They completely changed how I believe this world is, and they completely changed my relationship with God and religion in a positive way. And yeah, they have a kind of a profound effect on people when I share them. So yeah, I'd love to share that today.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. Thank you for that. I know that your story has been like publicized so much on YouTube. I've seen your video over and over and over again. And I watch it each time just like hoping for, a little gem of something different. It's so challenging when we share our experiences because like this story comes through, like it's this infinite experience, but somehow we try to structure a story around it so that it's like digestible for other people. But there's so much that comes with the experience, like, so you're talking about how your relationship with spirituality changed. And what was your relationship like before your experience with spirituality, or did you believe in God? What was your life like?
I did. I was raised in a fairly strict Christian household, and almost an evangelical style Christian upbringing, and but very strict, very strict. And as I got into my adulthood, I strayed away from that. I still, felt my heart was still Christian. I was going to church here and there, but not like I regularly did as a kid. And as some in the church would call me inactive or or an inactive Christian. That's how I was. I was an inactive Christian, and coming back to activity, actually, because I started coming back to church right before I had my experience. But yeah, raised Christian, but I did study Buddhism for 2 years in Southeast Asia. I lived in Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and I studied quite a bit of theology, religious theology, and um, a bunch of the different uh, aspects of religion for all of us. Yeah.
Did any of the things that you studied prepare you for what it was like in real reality, like at home?
No, not
Okay.
at all. I thought for sure, and it's kind of funny. I met this gentleman right when I crossed, right as soon as I crossed, there was this gentleman there to greet me, and he turned himself as my guide to help me cross over. And I had almost this kind of ego of, well, I'm Christian, so I can just get in. Just show me where the Christian door is. I'll just go into heaven, you know. And he laughed at that. He thought that was really funny in a loving way, not a ridiculing way, but in a loving way. He laughed and was like, I love that you think that, but there's a few more things we have to help you understand before you can get in. And that was pretty cool.
That is so cool. I love that. And you know what? I love that even though you had that thought, it didn't matter. You were still going to find your way there, like there was no
Mm-hmm.
condemnation around it. I really love that. Yeah. So, well, tell us yeah, you're talking about some of these spiritual principles that you use in your life today that really help you. I'm curious, maybe if you want to share a little bit about who was the first person that you told about your experience after you came back? Like, were you able to talk about it?
So my sister, my older sister, she's adopted, and she was the first one that I told about it. And it's funny, she was the one who kind of brought it out of me. I didn't remember my experience for the first day. So I came back for a full 24-hour period without remembering the experience. And she cornered me that very next night and said, "Hey, you were dead. Did you see anything?" And my brain went to say no. And as it went to say no, I just started to bawl and to cry. And this experience came out of me. And it was weird. It felt like someone else was talking or sharing the experience, but yet I was remembering it at the same time. And I just sat there for like 20, 30 minutes weeping. Like, and that's not me. That's not something that I would ever do. At the time I was like a bodybuilder, and that's not something that outside of New York City, you don't run into people just openly weeping. And I just I didn't I couldn't express it for a few weeks. And shortly after coming back, I met my now wife, and she was the first one I really shared the full experience to. She was the first one to get the full experience, and over the culminating years, she's gotten more and more of the experience. The hard part is, here's the hard part. There's no way to use our English language and actually express that experience. There's not, because our language is such a low form of communication versus what I experienced there. What I experienced there is bigger than our language. Our literally language can't express it. And so over the years, I've tried to express it as well as possible. And I struggled with that when, writing my book. And in fact, I had to work with a really good writer so that we could get this out, get the experience communicated where we honored the experience. Because I felt for years, as I was trying to write this story down, I felt that I was doing a disservice or an injustice. I felt like I wasn't doing it the honor that it deserved. And yeah, and in fact, I didn't even know that I had 10 principles in my experience until we turned it into the book. And my writer, Lynn, he was laughing at me. He's like, "Do you realize there's like 10 very distinct principles in here?" And I said, "Well, that's awesome. That's great." And I've been embodying it, but I never counted it up and said, "Oh, it's 10 principles." But yeah, ends up being
Yes.
10 principles.
Sometimes we need other people to sort of like soundboard that back to us, like other people, which is a beautiful part about sharing our experiences, is that other people can see things inside of the experience that maybe we can't see because we're coming at it from like this very limited perspective. And I love what you're saying about, yeah, human language cannot do it justice, but you do a great job articulating yourself. Your story really comes across very powerfully. So I'm glad that you found the language, that the words found their way to you. So I'm curious about your wife. So you said that you guys met like shortly after your experience. Do you feel like you have some sort of soul connection with each other?
Yes, absolutely. We, from the very first moment we met, there was something odd there, and we joke around that we're in an arranged marriage, that God arranged it, because as soon as we met each other, we didn't even like each other, but we knew we were supposed to get married, and we knew that we had this huge life purpose in front of us. We didn't know what it was though. We really didn't know this purpose yet, and we're still figuring that out as we go. But I'll tell you, there was there's an otherworldly energy there. Like when we first even met, neither one of us could speak to each other for about 3 minutes. Um, when I first met her, she had opened the door of my friend's house, and I was just standing there at the front doorstep. And for like 3 minutes, we just stared at each other. And then finally, my brain like kicked in, and I go, "Can I come in?" And she's like, oh yeah, come on in. We're gonna go play pool upstairs." Um, but yeah, it was really, really crazy from the beginning. We both felt it. And then for the next 3 days, it was as if our entire lives orchestrated to put us together for many hours to just chat in person. And it was from that we began this relationship, which here we are 20 years now, married and extremely happy with our two amazing kids.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful to hear about a relationship stemming off of spirituality and just sort of like this intuition, like this knowing. And just hearing about that is really, I think, probably very hopeful for people in a situation where they're looking to expand their romantic relationships. So, you talked about how you're a coach and you're a healer, and I feel like that's something that comes up for a lot of people as well. Let's get into these 10 principles that you found yourself partaking in eternity.
Well, the first and foremost, which everybody's like, oh, I bet the first principle is love. And it's actually not. Love's not till the third principle. The first principle is actually authenticity. And that was the first thing I was taught, that I needed to learn who I really was and allow myself to peel away all the different masks that I had generated for myself. And once I could peel away all these masks, then I would allow myself to know who the authentic Vinnie is, who I really was within. And so I went through that process of peeling away these masks and realizing that underneath all these different masks I wore, and we all wear masks for different reasons, most times so that we are not excluded or we're not targeted or we're not singled out. We put on a mask so that we're grouped, we're gathered, and we're collected in the group. So I did. I peeled off all these masks and realized that these individuals I had allowed myself to become were not too far different from each other, but how important it was that I could find the core of that and allow myself to just be authentic.
Can
And
you maybe describe what in case people don't know what you mean by masks, what were some of the pieces of yourself that you peeled away?
well, imagine this. Matt, look at a 5-year-old, how they live their life. They say what they really believe. They pretend and play however they want in most cases, and they really are extremely authentic. And then fast forward to the end of life and fast forward to 85 years old. And same thing. They say what they believe. They live very authentically. They don't care what other people think. And that's where we need to live. And it's funny, we start putting up these guards, and some people call them heart walls. We start putting up these walls so that we prevent damage on ourselves. And what is it that causes the damage? It's the sharp words of others, or us watching someone else receive sharp words. So we start putting up a mask to prevent those sharp words. Well, when you say sharp words to a 5-year-old, they cry and then go back to play. And that's where we need to be authentic and be authentically vulnerable, because it is our vulnerable moments where we're able to grow. And if you're not having any vulnerable moments, you're not growing. Legitimately, you're not, because you grow
Wow.
the most in your vulnerability. So allow vulnerability and seek it out. When you find it, figure out where it is, and then grow there, because that's a place that you can grow, where you have vulnerability. Yeah, so that's the first principle, is authenticity.
Cool. I love that. Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, as you're talking about vulnerability and thinking about like all of the fear that comes up. I'll talk about just myself. I won't claim this truth for everybody, but like, there's a certain level of fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, like what will happen if I share this very vulnerable piece of myself with other people? Will they use it against me? And I imagine that a 5-year-old probably doesn't feel that way, right? They're just being their authentic,
Yeah.
vulnerable selves. They're not worried about being judged. So yeah, that childlike wonder that it talks about in multiple different kinds of scripture, in our collective as well. Yeah, that came up for me when you were saying that.
And it is, it's having the innocence of that child that allows you to play in life. And we, in the play space, we are open to channeling, communication, and divination, or intuition, whatever word you want to call it. You're open to it, and you're allowed that to flow through you. And that's why so many young children, when you really listen to them, when they're listening to the different important things going on around them, they'll become little oracles. They really do. They say very positive things and very influential things if you'd listen. And it's because they are open to that channel of love and purpose in life. Yeah.
I love that. All right. Authenticity, number one. What's number
So
two?
authenticity, number two, is understand the reason we're here, understand the purpose of life. And that is that we are here in Earth School so that we can learn to make decisions and build relationships. That's really it. We're here to learn how to create, and we start with our thoughts, and our thoughts then become our actions, and our actions become our habits, and our habits become our character, and character becomes our destiny. That becomes the captain of our ship, starts directing us. And that's why we're here, is to spend time on Earth School. There's a lot of schools. That's the coolest thing that I learned there, is there's a lot of schools, and kind of the Harvard or the Yale, or the Ivy League of all the worlds is Earth. Earth is really the hardest school, and it's because here you can get done in about 80 years, what in other schools would take 1,000 years or 10,000 years. So we can get a lot done a lot faster here, but it also means school here is a lot harder, just like these, Harvards and Yales. It's not the easiest ride to come here to Earth School, and that's why we're here. We're here is to learn to make decisions, to build relationships, not to accumulate wealth, because we are here to enjoy abundance, but not to accumulate wealth. Accumulating wealth does nothing for us here. But what we do with that wealth can allow us to bring stuff with us to, into the eternity. And so the way we're able to give, love, and build relationships, that's what we get to take with us. Our relationships are the most valuable thing we get to take with us.
Okay, so I love the analogy of Earth School. I was downloaded with very similar information in my own spiritual experience. And I couldn't decide whether Earth was like the Yale, like the Ivy League of schools, or like if this is the school that you go to like when you're a bad kid. Like this is like the remedial math high school. But yeah, obviously, like I want to believe that it might be some sort of Ivy League, like, a very prestigious school. So I'm curious if you have any opinion on why certain people have harder, or, like as far as like the earthly experience would be considered harder life
So
experiences.
yeah, it's really weird, and it's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful, but it's also kind of scary what we sign ourselves up for, because that's what it is. We're so surrounded by the Creator's love, by the universe's love before we get here. We're so strengthened by that love. We're given this almost worksheet that says, "What do you want in this life? What do you want to get out of this life?" And the more we want to get out of it, the harder our life's going to be. And some people are like, you know what? I just want to cruise. I don't want to, ruffle any feathers. I don't want it to be hard. I just want to spend, 80 to 100 years and have an easy life. Okay, born into wealth, no issues, die in your wealth, that kind of life, right? And then others are like, oh, I want the AP program. I want the Yale law program, or I want to get my doctorate. And so they put checks in all these boxes, and And then they come here and they're like, oh, poor me, woe is me, why is my life so hard? And it's going to be funny because when they get back on the other side, they're going to see themselves saying that and say, how did I forget? How did I forget that I elected this? And now when we're in the middle of our struggle, that's the last thing you want to hear, is someone say, you opted in for this. But I can honestly say, I've lived a life in the extreme extremes of abuse. And I can truly say that I have received torture. I have received the ultimate of hardship that a lot of us will receive. Now, there far more than me? Absolutely. People have received far worse than me, but I'm there in the parameter of the worst most people will ever get in their life. And I can honestly say I signed up for it. 100% I did. And I knew that I needed to go through that so I could be hyper aware of what was going on around me. And that's who I was when I had my experience. I was already hyper aware because of the abuse I was raised in. And that was a beautiful gift to me because I came back from my experience remembering things that most people don't remember because I had that natural ability from my abuse. And so, in a beautiful and synchronistic and what I term a kismet way, I was blessed to be abused before I had my experience.
That is such a
And
beautiful shift of perception. Yeah, it really is.
and it's just like if you I feel that everyone is a sword in the blacksmith's hands, and some of us spend more time in the furnace. Some of us spend more time on the anvil being pounded, and some of us spend more time being grounded and sharpened. And I feel that I definitely hated the blacksmith for a while he was making me. But now I really love the blacksmith because she's made me great. He has made me great. Has made me who I am today. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I have such a similar experience to yours, just like the absolute depths of, contrast, like such a life full of hardship and perceived suffering and challenges. And yeah, again, like in the spiritual experience, going like, oh my God, I can't believe that I am actually a divine co-creator of my experience and not a victim to my circumstance. Like, what a shift. And you don't have to die to start living your life in that perception. Like you can just make the decision to change your thought around it. I feel like I hear a lot of people say, like, well, how come only certain people have near death experiences? How come only certain people have like these spiritual awakenings? And again, I also think that that's part of the pre-birth plan as well. Like some of us need that and some of us can learn from others. And I think you describe it. I love your blacksmith analogy. That's such great imagery. I love like seeing myself as sort of like this. I'm thinking of like a Game of Thrones, like Valyrian steel sword, obviously. But I
Like
really love that
spend
analogy.
decades in the furnace, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I remember writing a poem like very shortly after my experience. It was like a recipe poem, and I talked about like simmering in unrest for 35 years, and then like sort of this how to become an awakened soul. And that was part of it as well. Just like sort of, yeah, like this fire that I was in, and then coming out of it. So I really love that imagery so much. Thank you for that. And this knowledge is really it's right on. I resonate so much with it. So let's talk about spiritual principle number 3.
Well, real quick before we get to 3, I do want to say this, that with every hardship, there's a gift. And I can say that seeing in you, Betty, that you have gone so much of the path that I had in my life, that there's a lot of gifts that are already showing up on you, like just energetically, because I can see like the extreme hardship of your adolescence. And and it really is a strength and a gift. There's almost like an iron or a granite in you that's not going to be in most people, and that once you're on a specific trajectory, like nothing's going to get you off. Nothing. Whereas, somebody that was given, toys and Barbies their whole life and never had any of that hardship, they're not going to have that strength that you have. So with every hardship, there's a beautiful gift. There really is. And that's part of this journey. That's part that we truly do sign up for. We do. It's hard to hear that, I know, but we do. We sign up for it. But every one of us, we have this distinct, perfect journey for ourselves. And some of us come here to be addicts and never get out of it. Some of us come here to be victims and never get out of it. And that's our path. That's our path we literally signed up for. But then others, we were here to be victims and to vanquish that victimness, to overcome and to teach others that we can overcome with our thoughts and with our actions. And nobody can put a label on us. That we're the only ones that can allow a label to be put on us.
Wow.
And we don't have to allow that.
Right. Is this something that you help people with, like in your private coaching business, like sort of coming out of that victim
Yes,
mentality? That's
completely. Yeah.
really, really powerful. Yeah. And yeah, whenever I share my own story and like I see comments, people are like, there's no way that I would sign up for this life. Like, there's no way. There's no way that you would. There's no way that I would. And it's like, well, why not? Like, why wouldn't you want to have that perception? Like, why would you want to think that there was something condemning happening? Like this perception makes my life freer and happier and more joyous. So, like, of course, I'm going to live in this perception. If I get to choose which perception I live in, I'm going to grab at this one.
Yeah, and you can't get to where I am now in this life and try to believe in any way, shape, or form that everything is accidental and everything is circumstantial. Nope, not possible. There are so many synchronicities just so far in my life. Even, my near-death experience, or I call it my ADE, my after-death experience. Put that aside, there are so many beautiful synchronicities that God has shown me. There is no possible way. There is zero possible way that this is not orchestrated, organized, and planned from the beginning, from with us, not from God, us. Like every single one of us planned it together. And yeah, there's no possible way.
That's a
Zero possibilities.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when I like I work as a recovery coach. I work in a like substance use disorder clinic. And this is information that I cannot share necessarily with like somebody that I'm working with, because like it's a little outside the scope. I feel it out. I listen to spirit. I see like who I'm supposed to say it to, who I'm not, or just like throw the idea out there. But people that are undergoing like extreme adversity and hardship, this is a challenging concept to like integrate into your life. Like somebody loses a child, like you can't just like you can't throw this information at them like, well, you signed up for it, like because it seems almost dismissive and like bypassing. But after like the dust has sort of settled and your human is allowed to experience its emotions around a situation, like this knowledge for me has given me so much freedom in my life. I mean, like just mountains of like bondage released from my spirit, just knowing
Mm-hmm.
like, even though my human cannot fathom why anybody would sign up for certain situations, my spirit,
Yeah.
my spirit knows it. My human doesn't have to understand. Like I'm just like this little tiny fraction of something so much bigger, but my spirit knows. And like, I just have
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with that. That's where faith comes in.
And it's funny how our society is so enamored with superheroes. That's why, Marvel and DC are so huge right now. Is we're all looking for the hero outside ourselves. But guess what, everyone? We're all Wonder Woman. We're all, Spider-Man. We're all Thor. We're all these heroes within us. And we've got to allow that hero to wake up and stop looking for someone else to come save you. Save yourself, because if you don't save you, no one else can.
It's so great. Yeah. I'm thinking that we're not going to have enough time to get through the 10 just because this conversation is going. So you'll have to buy Vinny's book if you want to see what the 10 principles are. But I love this conversation. The hero's journey, like the mono myth, Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung, they sort of coined this whole sort of outline of like what a hero's journey is like. And it's in like every superhero movie that you just shared, as well as like nearly every mythological family as well. They all have like these
Mhm.
heroes in their stories. And yeah, we are also those heroes, and our life is following a story arc. And it's just like, when will you be willing to answer the call to adventure? Like for me, my call to adventure was just like plopped on my head. Like I like to say it, there was a spiritual brick thrown at my face, like, okay, it's time, like, let's get going. And I think that that's what some near death experiences are about. It sounds like you really had like that major transformation as well.
Oh yeah, major transformation. And I get around a lot of my Christian friends and my Hare Krishna friends, which, by the way, there's a lot of similarities there. And it's funny because my Hare Krishna friends will say, "Oh, we can't wait for Hare Krishna to come in the body," or my Christian friends will say, "I can't wait for Christ to come in the body." And I tell both of them, I'm like, make the Christ or the anointing show up in you. Have the Krishna show up in you first, and then it will show up in the reality, the physical. And that's the way it is. We need to allow that superhero, that saving energy to show up in ourselves first. Stop handing it over to the outside universe, because that's not the real universe. The internal universe is more real than the outside universe. What's going on in this temple is more real than anything you can find in an outward temple. Yeah.
So, what are some of the tools that you use, like, to integrate this information? Like, how have you found other like-minded individuals that feel the same way that you do?
Yes, so I've actually started a 501(c)(3, a nonprofit called Living God's Light, and that's what I do all of my functionality coaching and everything through. Is I really feel that there's this mission that I have to, number one, gather light bearers, bring us together in a network of sorts so that we can work together, we can activate the light in each other. And in no uncertain terms have I ever thought that anything I have that someone else couldn't have. I feel that all of us have these abilities. All of us have this potential to be big impact makers and light bearers in the world, because the world is so full of darkness. It needs that light. It really does. Doesn't matter your religion. We're a non-religious organization. We're unaffiliated, but we want to make you a better version of whatever religion you embody. So if you're Buddhist, we want to make you an awesome Buddhist, or if you're a Christian, we want to make you the best Christian and really embody the Christ in your life. And so that's what I do. That's what I do through Living God's Light. And I feel that IANDS in a way is also doing that. I really do, because IANDS creates a safe space without labels, that people can just show up as they are, and everybody is welcome. Whether you're the scientist who studies the numbers of how many people come back, and they literally are there to prove that nobody had a near-death experience. That guy gets embraced the same way as a lady who she can rub crystals together and tell you your future. Like that's what's so amazing about IANDS, is from the extreme scientific conservative to the extreme metaphysical liberal. We are all embraced there. And that's what Living God's Light is too, for me. Is it's an open forum, an open place where we can all love each other, support each other in our own realities, in our own religions, in our own lifestyles. We can love and support each other, and we can help activate that divinity within you and within oneself, so that you can have a better connection with whatever term God you believe in. Or if you don't believe in God, we call it the universe for our atheist friends and our agnostic friends. We call it the universe. But what's really amazing is you can be an atheist and still be a rockin' amazing atheist and make this world a better place. You don't need the religion to do that. You can really connect to the light. And even atheists understand that light is there, because quantum physics proves that energy can't be destroyed. So there's a specific energy that keeps your body alive while you're alive, and that energy can't be destroyed. Again, physics proves that. So that means that even our atheist friends know that there's some sense there. They don't want to call it a soul, but there's some sense there of energy, and that energy continues even after death. So that's what we do at Living God's Light, is we help people come into our system, into our programs, who they are and as they are, and we help them be a better version of themselves. And that's really what we're there to do, is to amplify the divinity within them. We call it the light within. We want to activate that light within. And we do use the term God, but we allow you to use whatever version of God you identify with, so that it is an organization, a nonprofit that can make a difference in this world. And that's what I'm all about. I feel a true life mission. My wife feels it. My kids feel it. I don't know if our puppy does, but I think she may. But
Well, hot
our whole
damn, sign
family
me
feels
up.
it.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I love the inclusivity and the diversity. Like I don't think I've ever heard of a spiritual community like welcoming atheists, or like being able to rearrange language to be more inclusive for literally everybody. And I love the idea of connecting to light, rather than, yeah, maybe some language that seems like a little like outdated, like
Mhm.
even sometimes just the word God. And then you're like, I'm definitely a believer, but even the word God sometimes can be like very triggering for people, because there's been one idea in our collective for so long that like God is this dualistic, like sort of antagonistic, nihilistic, like why does all of this happen here? And just to sort of like change the language around it and offer resources for light and energy and the universe. And yeah, I love that. That's so cool. And I think that yeah, that's what it's all about. I'm so grateful that you stepped onto your mission, and that you have the support of your family as well, and that it's sort of like this whole little family affair.
It is, where we do it this together. And I love, one of the regular exercises I do for people is I have them make their top five. So the top five things that bother them the most in life, and the top five people that bother them the most in life. And then I show them that with each one, we have five opportunities to learn what it is that we're seeing in that person that is actually identified in us. And that's what makes us hate them. And then same thing with the things that we hate. What is it that we're seeing in that thing we hate that we're finding a truth in? And that's these are, 5 and 5 opportunities to learn to grow. And when you walk around, I joke around with a lot of our groups. I say, I want to invite you to be offended. I invite you to be offended, because there is where you find the seed of growth. There is where you find the imbalance. And there is the point of opportunity where we can help you do some growing. And if you're not offended, congratulations, you're well along your journey, right? Because when you're in the love space, when you're in the light space, you're so embodied in your own light that nobody can take that light from you. No politician, no political party, no NFL team, NBA team, NHL team, win or loss. Like, you can't lose your light. You can't, because you're so emboldened and strengthened and embodied in your own anointing and your own light, that nobody can take it. Nobody can rob you of that light. And one of the best ways we see that naturally is when women become pregnant, or when people become pregnant. It's really a beautiful thing to see that light show up in them. And it's because now there's two lights. There's two lights. We have a little baby light, and we have the grown adult light. So it's a beautiful process to see that naturally. And we can be energetically pregnant with our happiness and with our light eternally. We don't have to birth that. We can keep it and embody it and hold it in the most loving and radiating way. And that's what it's all about. Living God's light. That's what that's all about.
Wow. Wow. I'm so grateful for this conversation today. You lit me up. I'm going to carry this with me for the rest of the day. Thank you so much for that. I know, yeah. So if you want to learn about the other 8 spiritual principles, you're gonna have to pick up
Oh
Vinny's
yeah,
book.
we got to do.
We'll put the link in the description of the liner notes for this. And like I said, Vinny's going to be at the 2023 Washington, D.C. IANDS conference speaking there. That's going to be so great. And yeah, our conferences really are something else, like there's so much energy. Like it just feels like this loving embrace as soon as you walk through the door. So if you're able to check that out, please come and spend some time with us. And I'm so grateful for your willingness to serve and share and just to have a conversation today. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share to feel more complete about our time together?
Well, I'll throw out there that the other 8 principles are: love everyone. Number 1, we gotta love everyone. Listen to your inner voice or your inner intuition, even if you don't believe in a God. Know that you have a conscience. You know that you have a subconscious that you can listen to. Use technology responsibly. That's a big one nowadays. Release prejudice. And if you say you're not prejudiced, how do you feel about prejudiced people? And if you're prejudiced against them, you're joining their ranks, which that was me. So release prejudice, all prejudice, even to prejudiced people. Exercise the power of creation. And what that power is all of us have a magic wand in life. Our magic wand is our thoughts. If we can really control our thoughts, we can control creation, our creations. So exercising the power of creation. And that leads me to 8, which is avoiding negative influences. It is important to recognize that there's rules in this game of life, and that we can't go around embracing negative energies and get a positive outcome. Because we do that. We go around, we stream, we play games, we listen to news, watch games which create conflict in us sometimes. And so it's like negative. And then we wake up and like, why does my life suck? I don't understand that. I want positive, but all I get is negative. Well, look at all the deposits you're putting in your life. All the things you allow in your life are deposits. They're energetic deposits. So negative in, negative out. That's the rule, right? So if you want to have positive in, make some positive deposits. So really seek out positive content for your energy, or your streaming, or your entertainment. Make sure that you're putting positive energy around you. Avoid toxic people, or put up an energetic barrier between you and toxic people. And that's going to allow you to avoid the negative influences. And then next, 9th is understand that there is purpose to evil. 100% there's purpose to evil. Without evil, there is no choice. And for us to learn here, we need to have choices. So there is purpose to evil. And once you understand how much the Creator loves us, and how much the Creator supports this whole system and surrounds it with love, you understand that that's how the Creator allows bad things to happen here. Because what happens here stays here. Literally, it stays here. It doesn't go on to the eternities. We get to go through that veil of forgetfulness. And as we do, we get cleansed. We literally get cleansed of the negative influence of this world. And our eternal existence will not be hindered, but it can be amplified by what we do here. Okay. And then, which brings me to 10, that, know that we're all one, that for us to hurt each other or hate each other or label each other is to label ourselves. That's it. That when we're putting that negative energy out to others, we're getting negative energy. And I teach the principle of the pointing finger. That's what I learned, was as we send negative energy out, we're taking back 3 times that energy in our own heart. So it's important for us to put positive energy out so that we can get positive energy back. So again, make those positive deposits in the universe. You're going to get positive benefits. That's or positive dividends. That's the way it works. Even in finance, that's the way it works. Stop withdrawing from life and thinking that you're going to get dividends. It's never going to happen. Start making energetic deposits, positive deposits. And then lastly, honor your hour of power. And the hour of power is what you frame your day to be. So how would you frame a picture? It's you put something around it, right? So how do you frame your day? That's the first 30 minutes when you wake up, the last 30 minutes before you go to bed. I call it the hour of power because that is a precious window. And what you put in that, it becomes your paradigm. It becomes your glasses. It frames what you see the world in. And if you're putting news in the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes before you go to bed, or stocks, because to me, stocks and news are the same thing. Because what do you notice? You notice the drops. You notice the trends down. You're not looking at stocks so you can see what you're going to buy necessarily. You're looking to see if what you bought lost, right? So even monitoring scores, stocks, sports, don't put that in your hour of power. That 30 minutes when you wake up, 30 minutes before bed, make sure you put something precious, even if it's just sitting quietly and not looking at your phone, but trying to connect to yourself, to your own inner self, to your mind, focus on your breath, turn off the TV, turn off any content unless specifically it's like a podcast like this. It's a positive podcast. Put some positive things in your hour of power, and now you will see the world as a positive space. But put negative things in your hour of power, you will see the world as against you, or the world as a sad place, full of sorrow. So again, an amazing book out there is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was able to frame his life in a positive manner while he existed in a concentration camp as a prisoner, as a young boy prisoner. He was able to frame his mind to think, wow, today's a sunny day. Oh, I see birds today. Chalk that up as a great day. The littlest things he was able to latch onto as hope. And we're not in the concentration camp. We're not. So how more important is it for us to see those positive things, even if we feel there's lots of negative around us? Frame your day in positive energy, and it won't matter what happens in the day. You will start viewing this world in a positive way when you honor your hour of power. Yeah. And that's it. So I did enough chatting.
That's great, man. My mind
Thanks,
is like
Vinnie.
totally blown. I love it. You really solidified a lot of stuff for me today. I mean, and I'm sure that you're going to help everybody that watches this as well. But just on a personal note, you brought together so many pieces of information that I needed validated, or I just needed to hear it back. And so I'm just so grateful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference this year. And thank you so much for your willingness to serve again. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Betty. And thank you so much for you doing this, by the way. I know it's not easy to do what you're doing, and you're at the beginning stages of all this, but thank you for doing it, because what you're building is pristine. What you are building is kismet, is beautiful and synchronistic, and it's building the light. That's what you're doing.
Thanks so much.
I bless you to receive light, but from this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.